Very good morning, dear children. Today we are going to start active and passive voice. So let's see the definition of voice at first. So definition of voice. It is the form of verb that shows whether the subject does something or the subject has something done to it. Then, a verb that has an object has two voices. Number one, active voice. Number two, passive voice. In this, we are going later, but at first, understand the meaning of this very thing. So, it is the form of verb. So, basically, it is the form of verb that shows whether subject does something, whether subject does any activity or not. Okay, whether the subject does any activity or not, or anything has happened or done by the subject itself, or done to it. Done to it. So this is the very thing. Next, a verb that has an object. So in a sentence where you are going to get an object at last. So, specifically a verb that will be preceding an object has two voices. So, that kind of verb has two voices. Number one, active voice, and number two, passive voice. So a verb that comes before an object has two voices. Number one, active voice, and number two, passive voice. Definition of active voice. The verb that expresses the action done by the subject is said to be in the active voice. For example, she loves me. So over here, the verb that expresses, the verb that specifically shows or that expresses the action done by the subject. So directly the subject does that activity. So action done by the subject itself or herself or himself. So, done by the subject is said to be in the active voice. So, if a subject does directly that activity, as it is given over here, suppose she loves me. For example, she loves me. So, she does what? She loves me. Full stop. Over here, therefore, the subject directly does that activity. So she loves me. She is the subject which is doing or performing this action directly. So she does what? She loves me. Full stop. Next, definition of passive voice. So let's see what is basically passive voice is, or what is passive voice. So the verb that expresses what is done to the subject is said to be in the passive voice. For example, I am loved by her. So the verb that expresses, specifically the verb that shows what is done to the subject. So something is done to the subject. An activity is being carried or is being done to the subject. When a verb shows this or expresses this, it is said to be in the passive voice. It is said to be in the passive voice. So, for example, I am loved by her. So, what is done to me by her? I am loved. So, the activity is done to me. So, I am loved. By whom? By her. And in case of passive voice, or when a sentence is getting changed from active to passive voice, then generally the verb in the passive voice will be in the third form, or will be in third form. Suppose over here, love, loved, loved. So over here it is in the third form only, that is loved. So I am loved by her. Full stop. Active voice. The hunter killed the tiger. Subject is over here the hunter, killed verb, and object is the tiger. Basically, tiger is the object. So when it is getting changed, or when this sentence is getting changed into the passive voice, then the object of the active voice is turning into the subject of the passive voice, or it is going to the place of the subject of the passive voice. So the tiger came over here, then was killed. According to the rule, since this is in, means the sentence is in the simple past tense. So if a sentence is in the simple past tense specifically, it is in the second form of verb, then was or were has to be added. While a sentence gets changed from active to passive voice, was or were has to be added in the passive voice after the subject, or after we have written the subject, then it has to be placed. So was, according to the need of the sentence, or according to the need of the subject, basically was is put, then killed is in its place. So verb, as I have given this arrow, will be in its place. Now by the hunter, according to the rule you have to put by, then the subject will change its place. The subject of the active voice will turn into the object of the passive voice, or it will come into the place of the object of the passive voice. Next, there are some points to remember. Number 1, there are 3 principal forms of a verb. Number 1, the present form. Suppose write. Number 2, the past form, wrote. And number 3, the past participle form, written. So the first form, or the present form, or it is also known as the base or original form, is the word write, suppose. So is the verb write. Next, the past form, or the second form of the verb, is wrote. And the third form, or the past participle form of the same verb, or of that verb, is written. Full stop. While changing a sentence from active to passive voice, number A, I is changed into me. Number B, you or it remains you or it only. Next, number C, he in the active voice turns to him in the passive voice. Next, number D, she gets converted into her when it turns from active, or when it remains from active voice and it comes to the passive voice. So she gets turned into her. Next, they turns into them. Then number F, we, is converted or we is changed into us. Number 2, there is no passive form of a verb in the perfect continuous forms of all three tenses. So there is no passive form of a verb in the perfect continuous forms of all three tenses, means that a sentence is not going to be changed from active to passive voice. From active to passive voice, basically there is no such verb that will indicate its passive form. Okay, that will indicate its passive form in the perfect continuous forms of all three tenses, means the past tense, the present tense and the future tense. So in these three tenses there will be no conversion from active to passive voice, or there will be no passive voice as such in the perfect continuous forms of all those three tenses. There is no passive form of a verb if it is in the future continuous tense. So there will be no conversion of a sentence from active to passive voice if the tense is the future continuous tense. Number 4, the main verb has to be written in the third form, means the past participle form, if the sentence is in passive voice. So if it is in passive voice, then the main verb has to be compulsorily written in third form only. So definitely past participle form. So the main verb will be in third form or past participle form when any sentence is getting changed its voice from active to passive. So in the passive voice, the main verb has to be in the third form. First form, as all of you know, first form is also known as the present form or original form or base form or root form. Second form is known as the past form, and third form is known as the past participle form. So third form of the verb means the past participle form of the verb has to be written.